We have the full moon in Sagittarius and wanted to share with you today about some of the ways we can work with this moon, specifically how strong it is, how passionate it is. It involves two royal stars, Aldebaran, which used to be in the Taurus constellation, but it's known as the horn of the bull or the red eye of the bull, excuse me. And then we have Antares, the heart of the scorpion. And so there's a lot in these two stars. And this actual full moon is a blue moon. So it's the second full moon of the month. And it also is in a square to the nodes of the moon, which brings an entire karmic scripture unfolding for a lot of us. So that means it could be like a pivot point for many of us with choices that we're making. Sagittarius is a mutable sign. And, so the full moon in Sag is always when the sun is in Gemini. Typically, other planets are in Gemini, and Mercury is there right now. And it keeps a lot of movement and restlessness. Sometimes that can bring some uncertainty, especially now that Uranus is in Gemini, into our lives. And so if there's a lot of things shaking and quaking and changing, that's pretty normal with this moon. But what I wanted to share with you today was also about the full moon and its connection to the 99 names of Allah, because this is a moon in the sign of the sage, the wisdom keeper of Sagittarius. Sag is the guru. It's ruled by Jupiter. And it's a sign that wants us to find meaning, a deeper purpose, and to actually awaken our spiritual senses in every moment. One of the best ways to do this, of course, is to be in nature. And Sagittarius loves the wilds. It is the centaur. So that kind of half animal, that part of us that is really raw and connected to the animal realms. But it's also a deeper kind of awakened awareness that connects us to the divine in every moment. And so let's talk about some of these names and put them into context with this moon. One of the ways that we can think of Sagittarius is, what do we need to expand into in our life that will bring truth and meaning? Well, one of the names of Allah is Al-Basit, the expander. And the expansion that we're seeking under the Sagittarius full moon is an expansion into wisdom. And wisdom is not knowledge. Those are different things, right? There's a kind of application of knowledge towards truth and service and compassion, which is wisdom. One of the names of Allah is the All-Wise One, Al-Hakim. And it's interesting to think of Gemini as all-knowledgeable, which would be Al-Alim, the all-knowing one. Everything in awareness is known by the all-knowing one. But then Al-Hakim is the wise one, meaning the application of that knowledge, that everything that occurs is occurring because of the divine will. And the nafs, or the lower ego in all of us, doesn't often like that. And when a moon is with the very intense, underworldly shamanic star of Antares, we may fight that. We may really have to look at our shadow pieces during this moon and where we try to control, and then relax into Al-Basit, who is expanding our awareness beyond what we know right now and giving us an opening in our perception. Antares, the star, heart of the scorpion, you can see it shines really red and bright in the sky. It's always been known as a very intense, sometimes destructive or high pressure type of star. Imagine like a star going supernova. It's got like kind of like, the burn it all down, kind of energy, which can also be kind of shamanic transformation. It's like, I'm hitting this point where I can't do the same self-destructive patterns anymore, or be in this situation that feels like it's constantly bringing me to my edge. I need to expand out of this. And that's where Al-Basit comes in, through this self-confrontation, this crucible that Antares, confronts us with. Basit can expand us into a greater sense of grace so that we don't really break under this pressure, but we open and keep opening and keep opening. And when we're kind of stripping down with this wild, passionate, fierce Antares energy, um, we also have to remember that there is the quality of power represented by this star that is represented in the name Al-Khahar, the subduer or the ever dominating. So Kahar is about a power that confronts the ego, that wants to control. And at the same time, when we need to call on Al-Kahar, it can give us a pathway to more power to conquer the obstacles in our life. It's kind of like, it's interesting to think about it, that remover of obstacles with Ganesh, which, and I think of Ganesh in a very Sagittarian way, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, right? That great mantra for Ganesh, the remover of obstacles. In this case, the conqueror of every obstacle, the one who can subdue. And so if you think about this Antares and, you know, um, energy that is fierce, that is raw, it's like a raw warrior spirit, but it's like a shamanic warrior. You think of this quality of Al-Kahar, the subduer. And then Al-Mui and Al-Mumit, these are two interesting names because one is the giver of life, one is the giver of death. And this brings up again the need for rebirth, death and rebirth. And it may come in all kinds of ways. It may come in a very intense confrontation during this moon. Something that forces the issue. We've probably been going through that this week with Mars and Pluto in a square. There's something similar with the Mars-Pluto tense, power struggle, unconscious shadow work that we have to do with Mars square Pluto this last week, and Antares as a star. So, what illusions must die? What needs to, what old self needs to be let go of? And to know that Al-Muhi, the bringer of life and a resurrected version, right? A more purified version is here on the other side. And we have a teacher. We have many teachers. All of nature, if we listen, can be our teacher. The birds and the plants. I've been really tuning into some incredible books lately, and this gets into the wisdom quality of Sagittarius. And if you think of an author, right, and this is also Gemini, right? An author can act as a divine conduit. And so I invite you to consider the name Al-Rashid, the guide to the right path, the infallible teacher, as a name to work with right now. Because there's a sort of intimate personal guidance that's happening with Al-Rashid. And that could be kind of a guru figure in your life. But the guru, the word means actually the teaching. So whatever is providing that teaching, and you can be listening to the backyard robin and, feel the presence of the divine in that. And that will be Al-Rashid teaching you the song of creation, the song of the morning rebirth, right? So Al-Rashid is that which directs the seeker, Sagittarius, right? The seeker towards our highest destiny, which is ultimately to be in taqwa or God consciousness. It's also important, I think, to consider that Sagittarius is a sign that's connected with the holidays in the northern hemisphere. And there's a kind of abundance and there's a kind of sense of blessing at that time of the year. And so in the Islamic and Sufi tradition, we have a concept called baraka. And baraka means blessings, but it's not just some fortune or a gift. it's the blessings that return us to taqwa, to God consciousness. So it's a sense of, it's interesting because it's like we have to feed barakah through certain activities. So when we give gratitude or shukr in the tradition, then we are opening ourselves up to the awareness of all of those blessings, right? And when we're going through a situation and we're being tested, we might have an emotion coming up. We might have a sense of a deep amount of patience needed. That's called sabr. And that patience can then bring barakah into our life. It can fortify our spirit. It can bring us integrity, maturity, and also a deeper sense of iman or faith, because we know that divine timing is at play, that the Al-Alim, the all-knowing one, and Al-Hakim, the all-wise one, is orchestrating for us what needs to happen. If we let go of that kind of, let's say, potential Antares grip, Scorpion heart grip on everything, um, and really connect with the truth, Al-Haq. Truth is, Al-Haq is the reality. This is what is, the ultimate truth. And the ultimate truth in these traditions is La ilaha illallah. Like there's no God but God. There's one God. This idea of tawhid and unity. Right? But this is a time where we have to cultivate faith. And this is tawakkul in the tradition. And this kind of faith is something that um, it's experiential, right? And that's the quality of Sagittarius. It's not just mental. It's living it. It's wakened to synchronicity and serendipity and to the conversation that opens a doorway to you and a look in somebody else's eyes. I'm reading an incredible book by Matt Haig that I would recommend for you. He's one of my favorite authors, and it's called The Midnight Train. It's his new book. And this um, is sort of like a life review kind of book, and it's incredible. And um, but one of the things that was said in the book is sometimes the biggest things in our life are the smallest things. The things that we might not consider are the most important. And only although the all judging one who knows how to judge perfectly will know that that small act, that devotion, that generosity, that charity that we were giving um, was coming from our hearts and may change our entire destiny and our ultimate fulfillment in this life and the afterlife. We may not be fulfilled in this life in the way that we want. We may be recognizing that during this full moon. And as long as our hearts stay focused on our connection to source and offering everything that we do, then to that source, right? As in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks so much about offer everything you do to me, then we will be protected along the way by our faith, right? Knowing that we are in constant divine remembrance. And then as we leave this body, we will come home to that divine that we've been with and praying with, that we've been in service to, that we've been in awe to, and in the grandeur and the majesty to our whole lives. So how do we cultivate that kind of taqwa, God consciousness, zikr, God remembrance? Maybe we need to be chanting more, reading more spiritual scriptures, studying these names and other traditions that move you. Maybe we also need to go on a pilgrimage to a spiritual place with that intention in our hearts, where other people are coming on that. Maybe a place like Konya for Rumi in the tradition of Islam and Sufism. Going to a place where great masters have been, where the energy is so high. I've been to Sufi shrines in Kashmir, and the energy of devotion is so strong there. Of course, India and all the many locations throughout India, but temples, right, around the world. Maybe the Camino or a sacred walk. This can be something you can look at through your locational astrology. astrolocality is such a Sagittarius and Gemini topic because it's about where can I travel and be more strategic in my travel. If I want to do a retreat or a pilgrimage, or I want to find an actual place to live and reside that feels more meaningful, spiritually uplifting, has the community and tribe and relationships, and maybe also the career and finances that I could feel supported by and support others through. And that's the beauty of locational astrology. I've traveled to 47 countries now. Keep on moving, and I use it in my life to guide me and my clients. So if that's something being called forth with this Gemini and Sagittarius in the sky, definitely let me know, and we can talk about where your power places are around the planet. So just leaving you with this idea that, this full moon is so potentially expansive, empowering, but also confrontational. And we have to learn to work together, to compromise. But a compromise is not a sacrifice. Sacrifice feels like we're losing something. And a compromise is actually coming together and learning how to partner for a greater purpose. And I think that as Jupiter, the ruler of the moon, is in Cancer, coming home to our communities and sharing our resources together, that's our time, our place, but our foods, our lawnmowers, our resources that maybe we can get rid of things and not have as many expenses so that we can collaborate and cooperate and actually know who's next door to us. It's going to become more and more important as the summer cycles come in as well. They're intense. And self-reliance is going to be a big theme for a lot of us. So I leave you with that today. And I hope that this has been empowering, and that you will work with some of these names and research them more during this full moon in Sagittarius, May 31st. And it's at 9 degrees Sagittarius, a sensitive degree in your chart, whatever house it's in, whatever planets it's touching. And we'll feel it. We'll feel it really coming in all through the weekend, big time. So enjoy this moon, celebrate, and let divine consciousness inform every action and every remembrance and every word. Aho, namaste.